34 after Ron Kovic served 2 tours of duty as a U.S. Marine in the Vietnam War. He was awarded the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart. He was injured on a day that he says in this essay that I beg you to read that he wrote last year, that he will never forget January 20th, 1968, when he suffered a spinal cord injury that left him paralyzed from the chest down, and he joins us now. Hi, Ron. It is such a pleasure to finally talk to you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me. I greatly appreciate having the opportunity to be on your show. Thank you.
Well, you know what? You're a brilliant writer, I have to say. Miss Hipple and I both read your book and then saw the movie, and that is a tough movie to watch because it's so true. It's just very reality in your face that war is hell. And people don't understand what that is because they've never tasted it, they've never smelled it, they don't know what it is. So what is it that you can explain about war itself, and then we'll talk about the issues of wars of choice and what the troop morale was like in Vietnam when...
Well, as a way of solving problems, it's probably the worst way. I read the article about Walter Reed last week, and it hurt. I know there were a lot of Vietnam veterans, many veterans like myself, wounded especially, who were outraged by rats, roaches on the ward. How dare they treat our troops this way, Randy?
But they've always treated troops this way.
I was thinking back to the Bronx Veterans Hospital back in 1968. Overcrowded conditions, rats on the ward, pushing call buttons for aides that never came, and yet they don't seem to learn, do they?
No, I mean, urine bags overflowing onto the floor seems more like a slum than a hospital, you
more
write.
Like a slum than a hospital. I thought the same thing when I thought about Building 18. I thought about that it's warehousing these young men and women, these men and women who were willing to sacrifice their lives, who went to Iraq, who have gone to Afghanistan, they come home with these severe wounds. How can they do this? How can they get away with this? What kind of country? Do people understand what it really means to commit men and women to combat? Do they really, especially to a war that makes no sense like Vietnam and Iraq, do they have any idea? Do they know that they're not just going to come home with their wounds and leave Building 18, but they're going to have to deal with these wounds both physically and psychologically, Randy, for many, many years to come.
Decades.
Many for the rest of their lives. Many of them will not live out their lives, will not have normal lives, as I wrote in the essay. Many of them will commit suicide. How many of these men and women from Building 18, from this slum, from this hospital, how many of them will become casualties of the war at home? How many of them are going to end up homeless? We still have Vietnam veterans, a large population of Vietnam veterans that are homeless. And I believe that what happened at Building 18 is just the tip of the iceberg. We've got serious problems in veterans hospital facilities all over the country. We have veterans with post-Iraq soldiers, veterans now, coming back from the war in Iraq with post-traumatic stress disorder who are in desperate shape, saying they need to see someone right away. And I don't know if you've read the same stories that I've read, but they're turned away. There's a waiting list. These men and women deserve the very best. They deserve first-class treatment, not to be treated as if they've served the purpose of these people in Washington, D.C., and now they don't count anymore, because that's exactly how my generation felt when we came home from Vietnam.
Yeah, and, nothing's changed. I mean, now you add insult to injury, and I mean that in the most physical sense of that cliche. You have the government, you have Bush charging them for their meals, $8 a day.
It's an outrage. And
you have the government.
With all respect, who are these people? 8 deferments, avoided going to the war. Listen, I spoke at the Democratic Convention in 1976. I had the honor in Madison Square Garden of seconding the nomination of a draft resister for Vice President of the United States, who chose to first attempt to be a conscientious objector, then go to Great Britain and Sweden, Fritz Efau, and then he was a war resister, someone who knew that war was wrong, as so many men and women in the armed services right now know that the war in Iraq, and there are many resistors, as we know. But these young men and women have come back from this war, and they are many of them are grievously wounded. They are extremely vulnerable. It tears you up inside. What kind of government do we have right now? What kind of country is this right now? And Martin Luther King said during the height of the Vietnam War, a time comes when silence is betrayal. And that's easy to understand what that means. A time comes when things have gotten so dark, when our wounded are coming home, when these young men and women who need love, need care, who need the very best of care, who need not to be left alone, abandoned in these places, in these dark and dank places with mold on the walls, with holes in the ceiling, with rat droppings and cockroaches. What is going on here? And this, as I said, this is not just one building to investigate. This is a practice that has gone on, and you cannot ask people to sacrifice and send them to these hideous situations that we should have never gotten involved in to begin with. You cannot do that and then abandon them when they come home. People in this country right now, Randy, should be outraged. People in this country should be demanding even more than an investigation. This leadership has failed us again and again and again, and people must not only break their silence and speak, people must take action right now. I mean, we must do this now. How long are we going to wait? How much more suffering must we watch? How much more of an agony must we experience before we finally, as citizens of this country that we love, raise our voices in protest against what's going on? We must, and we will. I know we will.
I know we will, too.